All right, let's jump right in. We've all seen it, right? $1 is not €1, and a euro is definitely not 1 Japanese yen. But why? What's the secret sauce that decides these numbers that literally affect everything from our vacation plans to the entire global economy? You know the feeling. You're at the airport currency exchange. You hand over a chunk of your cash, and you get back this totally different pile of colorful foreign bills. And you're left wondering, is my money suddenly worth way more or way less? And who's making that call? Now, you might have heard this idea that there are these giant vaults of gold backing up every single dollar. Well, that's kind of an old myth. The real reasons are this wild mix of economics, psychology, and even politics. It's less like a fixed number and a lot more like a global popularity contest. To get our heads around all this, we're going to use one really powerful idea. Think of a country's currency as its stock price. So, we'll break down what this national stock really is. We'll look at how a country's products and interest rates are kind of like its dividends. We'll even read its economic health report. Then we'll meet the big players who are actually moving the market, peek into the future with AI, and then wrap it all up. Okay, so let's start with the big idea, the thing that unlocks this whole puzzle. What do we actually mean when we say a currency is like a stock? Well, think about it. When you buy a share of a company, you're really betting on its future success. It's the exact same thing here. Holding US dollars or euros is a bet on the health and the future of the American or European economies. When investors all over the world are feeling good about a country, they buy its stock, they buy its currency, and boom, the price goes up. It's a global vote of confidence being counted every single second of every day. So if a currency is a stock, what decides its price? Just like any company, it really boils down to two things: what it sells, its products, and what it pays its investors, its dividends. First up, we've got a theory with a kind of fancy name, purchasing power parity. But the idea is super simple. A burger should cost the same whether you're in New York or Tokyo once you do the currency conversion. The Economist magazine even made this famous with their Big Mac index. If a Big Mac is way cheaper in Japan than in the US, that's a clue that the Japanese yen might be undervalued. And this is where inflation comes crashing into the party. It's called relative purchasing power parity. So if prices in Mexico are climbing way faster than in the US, something's got to give, right? For Mexican goods to stay competitive, the value of the peso has to come down. Over time, the exchange rate acts like this constant balancing act, trying to even out those inflation differences. And here come the dividends. When a country's central bank raises interest rates, it's like a company yelling, "We're paying bigger dividends." Big investors around the world see that and think, hey, I can earn more just by parking my money in that country's currency. So money floods in, demand for that currency shoots up, and so does its value. Okay, so beyond just prices and dividends, what else are investors looking at? Well, just like you'd dig into a company's financial reports before buying its stock, global investors are poring over a country's entire economic health report. And here are three of the big ones. First, GDP. Is the economy actually growing? Second, inflation. Is your money holding its value or is it getting eaten away? And finally, public debt. Is the government being responsible or is it drowning in IOUs? Each number tells a critical part of the story. You know, growth is a massive magnet for cash. All things being equal, money flows to where the action is. An economy growing at 4% is just way more exciting than one barely growing at 1%. That rush of investment boosts demand for country A's currency, and that's what pumps up its stock price. Public debt is a huge deal. If a government owes a mountain of money, investors start to get really nervous. They worry the government might take the easy way out and just print more money to pay its bills. And that's a recipe for inflation, which crushes the value of the currency for everybody. So yeah, a country's financial discipline has a direct line to global confidence. Okay, so we've got the economic fundamentals down, but who's actually out there making the trades, pushing the buttons, and setting these prices? Let's meet the big players on the field. So, broadly speaking, there are two main systems. On one side, you have fixed rates. That's where a government literally decides to peg its currency to a major one, like the US dollar, to create stability. Then you have the other side, floating rates. Think the US dollar or the euro, where the value is just decided by the chaotic, daily dance of supply and demand on the open market. But even in those floating systems, governments don't always just sit back and watch the show. Take Japan, for instance. As its currency, the yen, got weaker and weaker, the Bank of Japan decided to step in. They took their own foreign currency reserves and used them to buy up massive amounts of yen. That creates more demand and helps push the yen's value back up, proving that central banks can, and absolutely do, jump into the fight. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about the numbers. It's also about pure psychology. The currency market runs on expectations. If a rumor gets out that a currency's in trouble, traders will rush to sell it. And what happens? That massive sell-off floods the market and pushes the price down. Exactly what the rumor said would happen. It's a powerful and sometimes scary self-fulfilling prophecy. And this whole game is always changing. Right now, there are two massive forces that are completely reshaping the board: incredible new technology and major shifts in global power. Get ready for this. Artificial intelligence can now sift through millions of data points in a split second. Everything from news articles to what people are saying on social media, and it's getting shockingly good at calling where a currency is going next. Some studies have shown an accuracy rate of over 92%. Just let that sink in for a moment. That is the power we're talking about. Of course, there's a dark side. When you have thousands of these AI algorithms all programmed to think alike, they can react to the same news at the exact same millisecond. And that can trigger what's called a flash crash, where they all sell at once, and a currency's value can just evaporate in seconds, faster than any human could possibly react. So who holds the power today? This chart shows us what central banks around the world are holding in their savings accounts, their global reserves. And yeah, the US dollar is still the undisputed king, no question, making up almost 57% of the whole pie. But look closer. Its share is slowly but surely shrinking as other players rise. It's a sign of a gradual shift in the world's economic center of gravity. Whew, we have covered a ton of ground, from Big Macs to central banks to robot traders. So let's bring it all home. What's the one thing you absolutely need to remember from all of this? At the end of the day, there's no single magic formula. A currency's value is a living, breathing number. It's the stock price we talked about, sure, showing its economic health. But it's also a real-time poll of global investor confidence, and it's a bet on political stability, all mashed into one single price that's being updated constantly by millions of people. So, the next time you see an exchange rate, whether you're planning a trip or just catching the news, don't just see the numbers. See it for what it really is, the world's instant opinion on an entire country's economic story. It's a fascinating, complex story told in real time, which really makes you wonder, what's the story that vote is telling about your country's currency today?
It